From the Beaver County Auto Studios, it is a quickie here on PittsburghHockeyNow.com and Pittsburgh Sports Live. Hi, I'm Dan Kingerski. You can read all the articles I'm going to reference in the comments section of this here video. Wanted to get to, it's not breaking news, but it sure as heck is a bit of an interesting day in Pittsburgh Penguins Nation, because about 36 hours ago, Pascal Dupuis made comments to a French television station in which he essentially said that there's a disconnect. There's a riff, a row, use your own words, between Mike Sullivan and two players you know as Evgeni Malkin and Phil Kessel. Actually, for the purpose of this discussion, let's make those one guy. Evgeni Malkin Kessel. So Sullivan is telling Evgeni Malkin Kessel what he wants. Dump in, simple play, do the simple things to help your team win. Dupuis is essentially blew the whistle and said, look, the players, those two players specifically, aren't receiving that information very well. So there's a disconnect, a riff, a row. Sullivan today clapped back after the morning skate in Washington, D.C. You can, of course, catch the full article on PittsburghHockeyNow.com. And he did it pretty sternly. Sullivan called the comments irresponsible, said he was disappointed, really laid the lumber in a non-personal way, but almost expressing disappointment in that grandfatherly sort of way, or the fatherly way. Actually, I guess I'm the grandfather in this sweater here in the video, but you get what I'm saying. Sullivan really hit back, saying, look, Dupuis has been in the locker room. He knows what we go through, is what Sullivan said. Here's the thing, though. Haven't we all known this to be true? The Pittsburgh Penguins have three issues. They have trouble getting out of their own zone on defense. They've just got a bad mix of NHL defensemen, all quality guys, but when they get forechecked, when they're on their heels, their defensemen, aside from Chris Letang, don't have puck skills. We know that to be an issue. And then you look at the forward crew, and it comes down to the middle lines. We've talked about this on the Penguins live chats. We've talked about this on the website as well. The Penguins' middle lines. Derek Brassard as the third-line center. For whatever reason, and we can get into this as well, that cow just isn't giving the milk the Penguins expected. The second line, Malkin and Kessel. Evgeni Malkin Kessel. They have combined for 4 even-strength goals since October 27th. 4. Phil Kessel has 3. Evgeni Malkin has 1. There's a whole lot of money, there's a whole lot of power tied up in that line. And now all of those other things that we've been talking about kind of come into play. Let me get it back here. The Malkin and Kessel show is both uplifting and toxic. Now, this was a bit of the controversial column I wrote on Sunday. Tell me it's not really true, even more true on Wednesday. And here's why it's more true today than it even was on Sunday, is because now we're getting a peek behind the curtain. Look, Derek Brassard and Zach Aston-Reese, as I wrote in that column, were creating offensive chances at a much higher clip than they are now. They were playing very well. The Penguins, to try to break up this Malkin-Kessel thing that was not producing, and in fact, not just not producing, but also a liability, to break that up, to get fresh, they dropped Kessel down to Derek Brassard's line. And the line absolutely went poof. The eyes told me something was amiss immediately. It's usually the defensive blue line that stops Phil Kessel, not the offensive blue line. Yet, there he was coasting into the offensive zone, hanging by the blue line numerous occasions in the first home game that they were together, which and I'm drawing a blank on the opponent, but it's kind of irrelevant. They lasted only 2.5 games together. because let's just be polite and say there was no chemistry between the two. The reality was they weren't working together whatsoever. Since then, that production that Derek Brassard was creating with Zach Aston-Reese has gone away. And so now Derek Brassard is just really in the doldrums as the third-line center. The Penguins are getting nothing there. Now, to the second line. You saw them chasing around the LA Kings on Saturday. The Kings scored 3 times against Malkin Kessel. One was waved back because a skate was in the air. But Phil Kessel lost his man, Nikita Sherbak, who scored. And it happened again and again. This is the problem the Penguins are facing. And so if Mike Sullivan is a little bit upset, perturbed, peeved, downright pissed off at his second line, I think the coach has absolutely every single right. Now that I've laid the groundwork, let's get straight into the opinion here. Unless you're one of the diehard Phil Kessel rose-colored glasses fans, you have to have seen this. That line is not producing. You can blame Evgeni Malkin all you want. I'm not quite sure why Phil Kessel, as the winger who doesn't cover his man, gets a pass. Malkin was terrible in Chicago. Malkin wasn't terrible against Anaheim. Malkin wasn't terrible against the Kings. Those weren't his man that was scoring goals. And so the common denominator here in the middle lines is Phil Kessel. To answer Pascal Dupuis' comments, I don't think Mike Sullivan had to answer them whatsoever. I think we all could have figured out that there might be a little friction there for whatever reason. And it should be, because Malkin Kessel are not playing winning hockey. The first line with Sidney Crosby, Jake Gensel, and the rotating wingers, they're playing winning hockey. The fourth line for the past 6 weeks has been playing winning hockey. The middle lines, or where the Penguins are just getting killed. Now, if Malkin and Kessel were 25 years old, a coach not being able to get the most out of those players and actually having to tell them, again, how many times has Mike Sullivan said in the past 2 or 3 weeks? That's something we talk to our players about every day. You've heard the sentence how many times? And eventually you get this face. Yeah, you get that face. The problem is the Penguins are hanging on because they want those faces too. They want the good Malkin and the good Kessel producing and happy. The problem is they're not. And the reason they're not is stylistically. They're not playing good hockey. They're cross-ice passes instead of dump-ins. They're looking for pretty plays instead of easy plays to advance offensive possession, to get shots on goal, to pressure the other team. They're passing up those opportunities looking for the pretty stuff. And if a coach is unhappy with that, it's a good coach. If he's not unhappy, that's when you have to worry. Now, how serious is this? Mike Sullivan downplayed it significantly on Wednesday, saying, look, his relationship is the same with Malkin and Kessel as it has been throughout his entire tenure. He said the same thing at the draft in June. Remember leading up to the draft in June? That's when the Phil Kessel fire was really kind of raging out of control. And it was this goofball who asked Sullivan if the media plays a role in exacerbating these stories. And he gave a very thoughtful answer, and perhaps I should go back and post that. It's on the other YouTube channel. But the point is, Sullivan said, listen, sometimes media misunderstand things. We extrapolate things that they don't mean to say. So take that with a little bit of grain of salt. But this is the same damned fire that's been burning for 6 months, 8 months, a year. This is the exact same. Now, we have a guy, I think you and I both trust Pascal Dupuis. This is not a guy who's going to say something stupid or untrue. This is a guy who's beloved. He had no reason to stoke any fires. He simply spoke the truth. And now the question becomes, what do you want to do about it? Don't tell me that Mike Sullivan will be fired over a 32-year-old sniper who has 3 even-strength goals. That's just not going to happen. Don't tell me they're going to trade Evgeni Malkin. It seems like one player here. It seems like the Penguins have just one too many in that locker room. That's where I'm at with it. One person goes, and I think it solves the entire problem. I'll let you pick which of the 3. Of course, as we've seen in the past, as I say that, let me add another subset here. Malkin and Kessel can wake up tomorrow. Actually, as we talk here before the Washington game, invariably that means Malkin's going to probably score 5 goals and Kessel will have 5 assists and a couple points of his own. They're that good when they want to be. And that's why the Penguins are always going to hang on. Because, my gosh, when they're on, there are few lines in hockey that are better. The problem is when they're not on, they bring down the entire team. So, if Sullivan can't get a handle on this, if he can't get that line producing, someone has to go. That's my take on it. I'm Dan Kingerski, PittsburghHockeyNow.com, Pittsburgh Sports Live. We'll do the live chats every week and look for locker room content after the game Thursday night right here on Pittsburgh Sports Live.